I feel flattered. I shall consider it, but the interview continues. My question to you now is rather more personal. You as a South Asian, I know that you have great links to this country, and I'd like you to evoke them first on your own before I put some questions to you.
I wouldn't even take it as links to the country. I am a Kenyan.
Right.
I am born here. My father was born here. My husband's family is all born here. I am as Kenyan as you can get. I'm more
Right.
Kenyan than the Kenyan.
Right, so tell us, Grandpa came here to Kenya in 1895.
That's right.
Evoke that. I just want, the Hollywood movies running and you're the star. When do we get to you?
My grandfather came on the steamer boat to Mombasa from the west coast of India with a bunch of his buddies and went out to find out greener pastures, basically. And they followed the railway as traders. They were not the coolies. They were the traders supplying to the laborers and to the British whatever they needed. So if you wanted a sack of maize, they would run down on a horseback or a cart and pick it up and give it at a small profit to the person who wanted to buy it. And then they opened up general shops and general merchants all over. So my family had a shop in Gilgil, in Kijabe, in Limuru, and then in Nyahururu, where I was born. My father was born in Kijabe.
Right, and you studied, went to England, grammar school, came back, and now you've come back home. As a member of a minority in this country, they're Europeans, they're English people, they're Caucasians. How have you responded to this idea that people say, hawa Wahindi ni watu wabaya sana, wanachukua mali yote wanaenda nayo, they're only here to enrich themselves, they reinvest in Canada? Would you speak to that accusation? I'd feel rather put out by it and say, why?
I do, but then I do also understand where the people are coming from. Some of our people live very ostentatiously, and this is the impression that is accepted by the majority. The majority that needs uplifting, the majority that was educated would understand that every Asian has worked very hard to get where they've got to. The majority, given a chance, would be richer, and they are. I mean, the minority are very minorly rich than the majority. If you talk about rich Asians, that's just a perception. It's no longer the truth anymore. So I would tell those guys that, get real. Yes, we are there, but deal with it. We're not the richest people. We are a minority in every way possible.
Right, let's go back to the history books as well. Round about 1982, the names Kenneth Matiba, Martin Shikuku, in your lifetime, you've had a specific call for South Asians to leave this country in much the same way that Idi Amin had the exodus of 40,000 Asians from Uganda. Mm. How did you live that period? Asians must go. Somebody's telling you to leave.
Well, let the Asians go. So we let the Asians go, but the Kenyans stayed, and I'm one of them. Right. So it didn't affect me.
Right.
It really didn't. I mean, of course, for a moment you look at your skin color and say, well, it was an accident. I didn't choose to be born, and I'm a Kenyan.
Okay, but you are the spokesperson in this particular forum, and I'm just sort of, having what you would say. So your response is valid. This either valid that as a minority, it's enclosed, insular, and refusing to mix with other Kenyans. How would you respond to that?
That's again another perception. You go into a restaurant, go into a bar,
But they talk about mix, like getting married and having kids.
They do. I met a doctor in the Aga Khan hospital the other evening, and she's Indian, and I asked her what's her surname, and she said Mongare, and I said okay. So I mean, this is new Kenya. People who are learned, who are educated, accept things that you will marry for love. It doesn't matter who you love. So, but yes, there is a school of thought, and there are Asians who are very closed, but the majority are not. The new generations are not. And quite honestly, as much as I am proud about being a Kenyan, I am extremely also proud about being an Asian. I value my heritage, I value my culture, and I feel that that is the richness I come from, and I will instill the same values in my children.
Which takes us to the P word, politics. In this great perception of belonging, we now have South Asian members of parliament. There's something like a huge percentage, like a member of parliament or from Meru,
yes,
from Eastlands.
Right. Bigger than before.
bigger than ever before. Do you feel that as a minority you should, what is the expression, you should lie low like envelopes? Or do you feel that you have a role to play in the political dispensation?
Absolutely, we have
Just
a role to play.
Just keep the business going, don't care what the siyasas are, don't riot.
No, you have to speak your mind. You have to say where you stand. So
but are there fora for you to do that?
Yes, there are so many Asian organizations. There's the Hindu Council, there's the Asian Foundation. They do speak. They don't speak as loudly as I would speak, but they do speak. There is a role for Asians here. They are some of the biggest industry owners. They speak their mind at the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. And when the taxes go up, they make the biggest noise. When there are any issues, they do stand up.
Right. Okay, so the issues of the moment are things like ethnicity, tribalism. At this point, in the wake of the recent elections, it appears to me as a Kenyan, and we're both Kenyans damu by definition now, that this country is perhaps as polarized in terms of ethnicity as it's ever been. Would you agree?
From the point of view of politics, there seemed a few months where it was polarized. I think we've now got back to the business of getting to work, and we're all getting busy with our lives. But yes, for the few months when the election results were discussed and debated, yes, there was polarization. I do see polarization in the scandalous newspapers and the headlines. But when you're sitting and you're working in your work situation, you don't talk tribes, do you? John C.B. Okumu, I have no clue. Are you a Kikuyu or a Luo or a Kalenjin? Of course, the letter O gives away a lot of things.
Right.
But otherwise, no. To me, it doesn't matter.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, because you've got again, you're talking about stereotyping. So you're sitting there as somebody who's been Kenyan, and you presume that every Kenyan whose letter begins with O must be what?
I don't know.
But you just said gives away. What does it give away to you?
It gives away that you would be from Western Kenya.
Right.
But you could be from Mombasa.
Right. So I'm going back to the thing is the stereotyping. If you went beyond that stereotyping, being from Western Kenya comes to mean what to you?
To me, that you just come from Western Kenya. You probably, your heritage is Kisumu or Migori or something.
Right, but where I'm coming from is that within the South Asian community, we also have tribes within tribes, as there were.
Sure.
So being from the Ismaili community, being from the Sikh community, how real are these divisions? Because I would say, as a black Kenyan, that I'm not entirely aware of those divisions. Okay. Do they exist?
They do exist. In reality, they do exist. But let me tell you about myself. I was born in a village in Thompson's Falls, near Hururu. I went to a Muslim school, the Aga Khan Primary School. I then went to a Catholic school, and I'm a Hindu. So to me, these divisions are there in other people, but for me, they're not there. The religious ones are not there. My friends are all different tribes, different colors, shapes, sizes. So for me personally, it doesn't, but I know where you're coming from, and yes, they do exist.
Right, we don't have that much time, but we've got to the point now where we're saying that you are what you are by virtue of the education and the exposure and the kind of life that you've lived and led. So if you were to give a parting shot and speak to a priority that's ours as a nation, what would you make it, knowing what you know? What should be the government's priorities as they have their head towards Vision 2030?
The government's priority should by all means be education, because education is what equalizes everybody. Education is an equalizer, can put the poorest man on the table with the richest man or the highest caliber professional person in life. Education has to come after basic necessities like water, preventive medications, so that the children are not coming from challenged backgrounds. So education is the priority, but education can only be the priority after the child has survived the 5 years where the majority of our children are dying because of not getting sufficient maternal care, newborn babies care that require special care because the mothers come from a challenged background. So yes, health for mother and child, basic, clean, safe water, and then definitely education.
Geeta Manek, Rotarian and humanitarian, thank you so very much for coming on the JSO interview.
Thank you, John.